That's
All
it.
right, welcome everybody. Walter McKenzie to our second town hall of August 2025. Tonight we're going to discuss pre-service teacher and in-service teacher professional learning. As we start, I always have these comments at the top, so bear with me for a minute. This is a safe place for educators to come together. It's nonpartisan. We don't do conspiracy theories. We're not alarmist. We deal in facts, and we're building constructive strategies for educators. Our commitment to your privacy, we will not publish, share, or mention you by name or any other identifiable information in supporting your voice as an advocate for public education. Please know we now have 6 modules in our Ed Influencer Advocacy program. Educators as Influencers, Education as a Democratic Institution, Federal Education Programs, Supporting Legislation, Advocating for Policy, and our brand new one, School Funding. Each of them has excellent resources plus original material from worthy educators who donated their time and expertise to speak on each topic. Now, in the first phases of our roadmap work, we established Education Transformed has to have community at the core. Tiffany, you'll love that. Students as independent learning agents, teachers as guides and coaches, personalized learning from learner profiles to mission statements, and an embracing of new roles and tools in preparing students for the world they're going to inherit. Our living document is being built in real time, and you can go to theworthyeducator.com/roadmap to join in. They're all in Google Doc formats. You can add your comments and your brilliance to our collective work. We are not here to reference the way things have always been or promote specific products or services. We're here to envision a new future for teaching and learning. We have with us a panel of veteran educators who lead by example with clear voices and a vision for what education can be. You know them from other work they do with The Worthy Educator. I'm honored to introduce them now. Mishkat El-Moumin is the founder and president of the Communication of Success. And I always mention this, Mishkat, I don't know why, you can always tell me to stop mentioning this. In 2004, 2005, she served as the first Minister of the Environment for Iraq. Very
Thank you.
impressive and very honored to have you with us.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Tiffany Hall is the principal in Lexington School District 2 in West Columbia, South Carolina, and a worthy champion in education. She brings great insight to every conversation. Tiffany, thank you for being with us after a full day.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
And Kathleen McClaskey is the CEO of Empower the Learner and founder of Make Learning Personal and a co-founder of these worthy town halls. Kathleen, always great to have you with us.
Thank you, Walt. It's great to be here.
So panel, with everything I just went through about establishing a roadmap to move forward, tonight we address a critical piece in transforming education, learning new skills and understandings for teaching the next generation. Well, why don't we start with pre-service? We all went through pre-service programs. We understand what it takes to be a success in the classroom. What do we need in a shift for teacher preparation moving forward? How do we need higher ed to prepare aspiring teachers to be ready for what students and society will need when they enter the classroom? Easy question. I always say that. It's a softball. Just jump right in, hit it out of the park. What do you think when you think of pre-service?
I think like working with pre-service and just thinking of myself too, I was an MAT student. So
Yep.
my undergrad was history and poli-sci, and then, I guess it was 18 months of a master's. And my perception of what I thought teaching and education was, and then like what we were doing during the MAT program, and then what it actually was, like it was not necessarily all aligning. And so I think that giving folks and now more than ever, I feel like people have so much accessibility to so much that it's hard for pre-service teachers to really be able to hone in on like what good instruction looks like, what good management. So I think if they're able to have experiences where there's a common language around like what looks like good instructional practice. So it's like for whole group, for guided practice, for inquiry. Because I mean, people can go out there and get all kinds of stuff off teachers pay teachers and things like that, but those really hearty instructional practices where we're all saying, and I also work with a large ML population, multilingual learners, so that
Right.
speaks to my language too, is that when so many people are doing so many different things, it's hard for the kids are confused. And so I think in pre-service, really stressing that it's not about all of the bells and whistles. It's about genuine good instruction, and knowing what and how you want students to learn. And I feel like we locally are very blessed with some great programs. And so
Yeah.
I think if you also consistency at the higher level, right? Because I know
Mhm.
in the probably starting around 2010, there was a lot of turnover and senior staff members of universities, and so
Yeah.
kind of lost that continuity of that experience with professors. So making sure they have that too in their programs.
Yeah, I'm inferencing, so correct me, but I hear you saying make it really practical. You know, you really need to know and see what good instruction looks like and how to implement it. So, like, I came out of Ohio State in the mid '80s, raw Buckeyes, and we got a really healthy dose of Piaget and Bloom and Maslow, all wonderful theorists, many more I'm not mentioning. Is there still a place for that? Do we need to do a lot of foundational cognitive theory first? Or are we saying right out of the gate, we need more practical and less theory? Not
Well,
that I'm, go ahead.
so one of the things, I mean, I, th- I'm sort of have a background, and you probably already know this, Walter, around universal design for learning.
Right.
And I think it's so important now to really help teachers understand how to really develop really good instruction for all learners in the classroom. Okay.
Yes.
But before you do that, because I love the whole idea of a common language. In fact, in one of my publications, actually, the chapter says build a common language
Yeah.
around learning. And what UDL allows you to do is to build that common language. Above all, and this is really near and dear to my heart because I think it's something we unfortunately miss as educators sometimes, both in pre-service or in service, is really to understand who the learners are.
Right.
Okay. Because if you're going to value every child in your classroom, you really have to get to build relationships with them and to understand who they are as learners. And it doesn't, I know that we probably do a lot of this, who I am. It's not just about who I am, it's how I learn. Children really need to share with their teachers the strengths and challenges and how they learn. And
Mhm.
that's an important conversation right at the very beginning of the year. Because how are you going to develop instruction if in fact you don't know how the children in your classroom actually learn? And the importance in accepting each other for our differences, because we do learn differently. In fact, I'm sure that each one of us have said, oh, I learn best when I have X or whatever.
Right.
Well, kids do too. But one of the things that a lot of children don't ever talk about are their challenges in their learning.
Mhm.
And that's because that's a harder discussion. But I think in order to build those relationships, and I'm going to go back to the learner profile that I developed
Please.
all over
Yeah.
a decade ago.
Yeah.
And it is so important to really empower children to share this with their teacher and actually with each other. Because kids will find out, hey, I have that same difficulty,
Right.
or I find that hard too. And so the thing is that you can't really create this really inclusive environment and culture in the classroom until you accept and understand each other.
Yeah.
It's not just about who I am, it's about how I learn, so.
Yeah. Mishkat, what are you thinking?
Thank you, Walter. For me, there is always this approach to create professional development training for in-service and pre-service teachers around goals and realities. So just like Tiffany said, making them practical, making these training practical, using a common language, like Kathleen said. By the end of the day, we need to have a goal and objective. So we are conducting these trainings, we are conducting these professional learning development to achieve a certain goal, a certain academic goal. And that has to be to create a transformative learning experience for the learner to go beyond the classroom. You see, the issue we are facing currently is that students oftentimes memorize the information to pass tests.
Right.
Fine. But once, they are conducting, let's say, or participating in a job interview, I passed, the test. I have the diploma, but I don't know what skills I need to occupy successfully or to perform these duties successfully of particular jobs. And that creates a disconnect. So by the end of the day, the learner would say, I don't want to learn because there's no value in learning. So the goal here, the academic goal, is really, the centerpiece, so to speak, to create and design the training that helps the learner. The other piece of the equation is the teacher, and the teacher is the foundation of, the school and the entire system. So by providing skill-based learning or skill-based development to teachers, we are serving the students, and that part, this connection needs to be created. So schools won't be a place where a student take a test. By the end of the day, the student dread the school or they don't want to learn because they feel that all is there is testing and passing the test and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But if we make it more skill-based and we start helping the teachers themselves acquire and apply these skills day to day in the classroom, first of all, we will have less disciplinary issue. We will not have behavioral issues because the student is participating to learn a skill they will benefit from. They will apply these skills in real life and be able to earn income. Second, we will have families on board as well. The student comes from a family, and oftentimes, especially, if we want to talk Title I schools where, students come from underrepresented, underserved communities, the family needs the income. And rather than, having a student sitting there telling themselves, well, I will become, just like my father or my mother, they sell, drugs in a store, or they sell, some, product in a mall or something like that. They don't need to learn.
Right.
Rather than having that being the example, you can have something else be the example, such as helping the students learn about STEM jobs that are available out there for anyone without a 4-year degree who can perform these skills. Perhaps I'm biased because that's the the dissertation thesis of my second doctoral degree. But honestly, it came from my connections to Title I schools and to talking to the parents, the teachers, the students, and learning more about what they want to experience in a classroom.
Yeah.
So that's the type of, professional development that honestly would transform our classroom into a more productive environment.
Thank you. So Tiffany, I'm thinking as everyone's talking, and it's like, okay, do we need to get pre-service teachers out into schools sooner? And does that also mean we need to get them out into the community sooner to get that feel for the people they're serving?
Yeah, so I don't know if it's really like time. I think what I've really learned, my school, I can't share specifics right now because everything's embargoed, but we
Yeah.
have had great results, is what I will say, in this
Okay.
past year. And I'm in year 22. And so
Yeah.
the big realization that I just clicked for whatever reason is everybody is speaking a different language, and everybody thinks they're speaking the same language, but how do you actually define all of these things? So like for me, like I agree that skills are important, but what you think that academic conversation looks like or critical thinking, like when they're defined, can look very different from person to person. We believe in performance task at my school as well, but I'm going to show you real quick because this like makes me so proud because it's actually one of my passions as well. So in South Carolina, I don't know if you can see it, we have
Yes.
I carry this book with me everywhere I go, and
Yeah.
and this is like free. It's the competencies of a South Carolina graduate. And so what it does is like one, we have standards because our teachers do need to know like this is what kids need to learn, right?
Okay.
But the piece to me that increases our rigor and our skill base are the competencies. And so, for example, if I were to say, like we do a lot of community engagement
Yeah.
in my building, I believe in service learning for all of our students, but one of the competencies is engage as a student or engage as a citizen. Um, and I could grab that for you real quick and then just tell you what that, and I'll
Yeah.
tell you what a number, like a level one is.
Yeah.
So a level one of like participating in your community is just like with guidance, I can learn and practice one or more ways to help make those around me feel welcome. That's pretty surface level.
Mm.
Yeah.
And then it goes up to a level 6. So at a level 6, I can develop and practice a set of personal strategies and commitments for building my own cultural and historical knowledge across lines of differences, and by promoting fairness, inclusivity, and appreciation for differences in both personal and professional contexts. I can also develop a practice of acknowledging the value of the contributions and perspectives of those from a cultural identity different from my own. I
Mhm.
can encourage and participate in the formation of culturally diverse teams to ensure representation and to create opportunities to leverage the strengths and diversities. So I think what I've learned is that we spend a lot of time like teaching at people, even if it's like pre-service people,
Right.
but it's all kind of philosophical, and like they need a solid understanding of like what does that look like though when you
Right.
say you should engage as a citizen, you should participate in your community. And so I think that's my big takeaway in the last year is that we need to be speaking that same language. So when I say that to somebody, a pre-service teacher, a veteran teacher, a teacher right in mid-career, we
Mhm.
all can define what like a level 1 looks like and a level 6. And
Good.
kids, I think somebody mentioned about students also kind of being able to take ownership in where they are in the process. So kids can self-assess and
Yeah.
say, I'm at a level 1 and I want to get to a level 3.
Right.
And it just makes the whole educational process better. And I think because we're so inundated with so much information,
Yeah.
people are we've kind of gotten away from the core of like I know you mentioned Blooms and
Right.
but Marzano and stuff back in,
Yeah.
the start
Yeah.
of those are actually great practices, like
Oh,
using
yeah.
a graphic organizer to
Right.
like a Venn diagram, like in every classroom in my building, we take focus notes, we use Cornell notes.
Yep.
So everybody in this building knows how to write notes. And then I can expect that out of every single student.
Yeah.
Of course, that's not a higher level thinking necessarily, but
No.
your
Yeah.
questions could be that are in your notes. But so I don't think it's necessarily starting earlier. I think it's making sure that they are placed in the kinds of places that kind of have that language already developed,
Yeah.
to keep on building. And I think a positive culture too. I mean, you can walk into some buildings and just feel like I do not want to be here right now. And then you can walk into other buildings where it feels like take a risk, take a step
Mhm.
out, like you're going to be supported. We want you to be your very best version. And so I think it's kind of holistic culture, academics, leadership for those pre-service folks. So it's a hard
Yeah.
job for those college people.
It really is. I was
Yeah.
talking, Kathleen, I was talking to Susan Blum from University of Notre Dame a couple of weeks ago. She
Uh-huh.
wrote this amazing book called Schoolishness and how we do things in school because we've just always done them this way. And I was so taken in by the conversation, she's wonderful, that I finally just said to her, why is it, and I was thinking of our champions, Tiffany, why is it we have practitioners in classrooms and in buildings showing us how to do these things, but when you go to higher ed, they're not talking about that. They're not in the classrooms. I don't want to say ivory tower, but they're in their own world, publishing, doing research, doing the things that you do in higher ed.
Right.
Do we need more practitioners in teacher training programs? Do we need more people that are actually, even if they're not still teaching, they're getting into schools, they're doing action research, they're aware of everything that's shifting generationally? I know I ask these loaded questions, but Kathleen, what do you think?
Well, I've taught, some graduate schools and, as a practitioner, and boy,
Mhm.
there's such an advantage when you do that, really, that you are a practitioner and now you're with teachers. Maybe they're trying to learn a new instructional strategy or whatever, but boy, it really is important that they have practitioners who are teaching them, so but anyway, I wanted to talk about, kids and getting them the experience of world experiences, right?
Yes,
In the
yes,
high school level. And so our local high school that was founded way back in, let's see, it started up, I think, like 1991.
yeah,
Uh, but those kids actually in the high school level have 20 hours of community service each and every year. So they go out in the community, or they're doing something that in which they're contributing to the community so that they have a real connection. In fact, you can't really graduate unless you've completed all your community service
yeah.
each and every year. It's as important as anything else is in there. So I think that's so critically important for kids to do that. To understand that, there's a much bigger world. Some kids actually, I remember some many years ago, when it was around Katrina, they actually went down to New Orleans to help out. Some kids spent 3 months
Yeah,
down in New Orleans.
yeah.
And so having that flexibility in school and giving kids real world experiences like that is so important to help them sort of um, give them some direction
Mhm.
actually in life, because they may actually just love that sort of work and wanting to end up doing that in the future. So all those outside of the school experiences, to me, I think is so critically important. And
Well,
knowing how important it is to actually contribute to a community.
and
Uh,
you're talking Tiffany's language. She's all about working in the community. Tiffany, talk about what that looks like in your school. How do you engage the community and extend that for learners?
Right. So we have usually done days of caring. And so they're kind of scheduled usually on our early release days.
Mhm.
And kids are allowed to sign up for, kind of what speaks to their heart.
Mhm.
And teachers are sponsors of, I guess they're kind of like leadership clubs.
Mhm.
And so we've had where kids make blankets for the local dog shelter, or, dog toys. We've had them knit hats for premature babies in the hospital,
Mm.
make transitional kits for the homeless. And so
Mhm.
um, it just stuck out to me years ago. I've also done like food drives. So found
Right.
opportunities with local partners that were doing food drives. And I was like, well, can we bring the food drive to my school? And then,
Mhm.
my students could pack the food. And then we typically did not let students put the food in the cars, because a lot of times it could be some of the families of our students. And we didn't
Yeah.
for um, just purposes that we would not want them to know if
Right.
another student's family was receiving the
Sure.
food from the food drive. But we had a senior food drive one time, so we knew it wasn't going to be any of our kids' parents. And we
Yeah.
did let some of our students, and one of the students said to me, Dr. Hall, this was so much fun. She said, I didn't know you could help people when you weren't in trouble. And so her paradigm, yeah, her uncle was actually in prison, so to
Mhm.
her, community service was
Right.
a punishment
Right.
to not like, and And what it did is like when we allowed the kids to kind of think about how could you help the community? What kind of leadership clubs do we want? Is like the kids are so much smarter than we are. They have all
Yeah.
these great ideas of ways that they can help, but I want them to be able to see one, you need other people's opinions like this,
Mhm.
engaging as a, a citizen, but that it doesn't mean you have to be wealthy to give back. It can just be your time, it can be your effort, it can be your caring. And so that's just a few of the ways that we've tried to give back to our community, make sure that it's great, Beta Club, all that good stuff is great, but making sure every kid gets that experience is important.
Yeah, we had said in previous town halls, panels had said very explicitly that they thought leadership opportunities should be part of every kid's school experience. And describing it in terms of community service makes a lot of sense. Mishkat, your head was nodding. What are you thinking as you're hearing all this?
Honestly, it brought to me the concept of trauma-informed classrooms.
Ah,
So part of the training that I hope will be incorporated in professional development and learning opportunities is trauma-informed teaching. Oftentimes, students come from traumatized families.
yeah.
Just like Tiffany was talking about her student who had her uncle in
Mm,
prison. That's a
yeah,
traumatizing experience.
yeah.
And the way the student reconnected with the community is through community service that was presented to her in a form of helping the community, not as an obligation that she needed to fulfill.
Mhm.
So, helping the pre-service teachers and the in-service teachers with tools such as strategies to create trauma-informed activities or opportunities is crucial these days. The other component that I am eager to bring forth is inclusive pedagogy.
Mm,
So it's not only about, choosing words or verbs or greeting everyone the same way. The pedagogy itself, the activities that we use in the classroom, the curriculum that we create needs to be inclusive to all.
Mhm.
It doesn't mean the teacher needs to work harder. It doesn't mean that they have to go out of their way to create an activity for a group of people. All it means is that we have a broad concept that can include everyone. In addition to the way we communicate, it's not only about what we say, it's about how we say it.
yeah.
I had a student in my classroom, and she was a struggling student.
Mhm.
And, it was, we call it study hall at the time,
Yeah.
because it's designed to help students with their homework after hours.
Mhm.
And the chairperson of the department, just popped in to check on us. To me, I didn't feel the department chair did something or behaved in a way to alarm my student.
Yeah.
The class was like 4 or 5 students, so
Mhm.
that particular student was not the only one. Later on, my student told me that the way the chairperson looked at her made her feel unworthy.
Yeah.
So it's not about what we say, it's about how we say it.
Yeah.
And that's a very important component. If I may, I also would like to go back to your original question about the ivory tower and how universities oftentimes act like a research entity
Right.
versus, an on-the-ground supporting arm, if you wish,
Mhm.
to teachers. I experienced something similar, when I worked in faculty development. While both, entities, the teachers at the time and the the development division, they
Mhm.
existed in the same ground. So they operated in the same facility, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah.
The distance between them was really like, unbelievable. The entity that was responsible for teacher development, they didn't practice teaching for quite some time, so they were rusty. They didn't, keep in touch with reality. To be honest with you, observing a class, it's not like teaching it.
Right.
It's also not like teaching it every day. And by the end of the day, teachers would attend the training because it's mandatory, and they would say to each other, just do it to get certified and then forget all about it. So, providing teachers with tools and strategies that they can use
Yeah,
on daily basis that are applicable
yeah,
to their classroom, it's part of the inclusive pedagogy that I talked about. It's
yeah,
not only to include teachers, to
yeah.
include students, it's to equip teachers with tools that they can apply in their classroom to conduct a learning experience that goes beyond the classroom and stays with the learner, help them grow, help them develop skills to utilize in jobs and connections with the community and all of that.
It makes sense. About a week ago, we had a book talk last Saturday, a new book, Pedagogy is a Voice, using street data. Um,
Yes.
and one of the four authors, Sosan Jabed, was on, and she was talking about the issue of trauma and how
Mhm.
we have to really, I'm back to pre-service as I'm trying to loop this in. We have to address and recognize and resolve our own issues with trauma to be effective in helping students with theirs. If we're still, and God help me, I'm in my early 60s, and it's like it's an ongoing thing. You don't just check off a box and say, yeah, I'm done with that. That'll never bother me again. But having said that, is it realistic to include that in pre-service teacher training? Not about necessarily preparing kids for all the trauma that's out there, but for ourselves, what we bring in, because we all do.
Yes.
And if we're more aware of it, then we're able to monitor it as we're dealing with, honestly, students that could trigger our own traumas and other adults that could trigger our own traumas. Uh, Kathleen, thoughts?
Mm.
Easy question, I know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
not
piece
such
of
a good
cake.
question.
Yeah.
Um, one of the things, and I'm going to go back to this whole piece around building relationships with
Mhm,
children. Um,
mhm,
I had the honor of teaching middle school and junior high school
mhm.
as a computer teacher.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I learned um, is to speak to every child one-on-one
Mhm.
within the first week or 2 weeks of school,
Yeah.
um, because each one of these kids, may want to share something, with
Mhm.
you, but you just want them to know how much you care about them,
Right.
and the thing is, you can exhibit that, in a lot of different ways in your classroom, but getting to know each child is just so important.
Yeah.
And as I said, I've spent the last, I don't know how many years, I can't remember, say 15 years,
Yeah.
this whole concept of really the learner profile and understanding who the learner is,
Yep.
and to get them to know on a more personal level.
Mhm.
Because that's everything when you try to teach anything, is that you have
Yeah.
a relationship with them.
Right.
And then trying to build this culture in the classroom where they can, build relationships and all sorts of different activities with each
Mhm.
other.
Mhm.
Uh, because getting along and belonging is so important. Feeling you belong in that classroom is just so critically important overall, and
Yes.
having those activities that actually create that environment.
Thank you. Tiffany, when you think of trauma and all this talk, especially for adults in pre-service? are we talking realistic here, or is this like beyond what a pre-service program can be?
Um, I mean, I think there's a place. I went through probably the best professional development I've ever done, and I didn't get to do it until I became a principal. But I really believe in leadership awareness, and everyone's a leader, right? I'm in
Right.
Leader Me School. I believe in the
Yep.
7 habits of highly effective people. The
Yep.
paradigm, everyone has genius, everyone can be a leader.
Mhm.
And one of the things I went through was Truist, the bank, does
Oh,
like
yeah.
this mastering leadership, and our state had a partnership with them, and it was
Mhm.
all paid for. And one of the things they did, which is almost like therapy, I had no idea what I was signing up for.
Right.
And they took us in this room. We had to take our shoes off and stuff. I was like, this is with the State Department. So I kind of was
Right.
like,
Right.
this and somebody asked me, like, "Did you have to sign a disclosure when you went?" And I was like, "No." And, because it was very, like, soul searching almost. So we had to answer a bunch of questions
Mhm.
about our caregivers,
Mhm.
between the ages of, like, 7 to 12.
Wow.
And there was an educational psychologist and, like, a therapist in there. We did
Right.
not, and then we had no idea what was coming next, so they
Right.
had us come up to the front, and there were 8, and I definitely would never share, it's Vegas, what happened in there. I would never share people's stories from that because it was so personal,
Yep.
the questions that were asked about our childhood. And
Yeah.
it's to arrive at the success scripts that you develop. And it helped me to understand students better too. I've always been somebody who's connected well with kids. I love my job. I Kids are easy. The adults are usually the ones that are a little more challenging. But one of the things that, like, you found out is like what triggers you. Everybody's success script is different. So, like, for me, my dad and mom have always made me feel like I'm an intelligent person. You could call me dumb all day long, and that's
Mhm.
not going to bother me.
Right.
Now, somebody else who their success script, because when they were under the care of these caregivers, they felt like they had to be smart and they weren't feeling that way. So they create this success script, and they will tell you it's not real, but it's your 7 to 12-year-old self developing this idea of what you have to be. And so when somebody tells you you're not smart, you are then triggered. And then once you are triggered, you go into a conflict stage. And so, like, I know mine. I'm willing to share mine. One of my success scripts is that I have to be perfect.
Right.
And not in the sense that everything has to be exactly right. Like,
Mhm.
my dad was a pilot. He taught me, or he took me into a simulator when I was young. I got in, I thought it was funny to crash into the birds and make it shake. And my dad was like, very calmly, he was like, "Okay, Tiffany, come on, get out." And he never took me back again. He did the same thing with, like, driving a clutch. He took me one time, very calm, gave me directions. I didn't do it right. He never took me back again. And so what I learned is I have one opportunity to get
Right.
things right.
Oh,
Right.
wow.
So if you take that opportunity from me,
Mhm.
I am gonna get triggered.
Yep.
You are gonna send me into conflict. And the important thing for me as a leader and me as a teacher, right? If I would have had this earlier in my career,
Yeah.
it not only would help with students, it would help with adults as well, because it helps you to think like, okay, what's happening to me right now? My body's getting hot. I'm
Mm.
starting to sweat. I
Yeah.
feel some, my face is turning red. My
Yep.
pulse is accelerated, so
Yep.
that I can recognize that and choose to have a different response
Yes.
because I'm aware of, like, all that. So I think all of, knowing ACEs, all about all that good stuff is
Yep.
great. But I do think that it does. I think you said that, Walter, about starting with yourself in your
Yep.
own traumas or
Yes.
whatever uh, has developed you as a human being. Your
Mhm.
awareness of yourself is
Yeah.
is important. And so if we could do more, I think people would benefit for just not just in education, but in
Yes.
life in general. It would
Yep.
it would help them. So
Amen. That's
yeah.
so true. And I love the fact that you're saying this happened, as a veteran educator. We weren't lucky enough to have something like that in pre-service. Um, so whatever stage in life we're in, it's never too late to have those ahas and realize that's what that's why the little voice in the back of my head is still there telling me that I have to be perfect.
That's why
Um,
working with middle schoolers, I'm like, you guys cannot roast each other. You
right.
cannot, because like what you say to one kid, like will be fine. And then you say to kid B the same thing, and now he's ready to fight. And so
Right.
it's because that success script that each of us developed from our caregivers, which again is not real. It's just
Right.
what you developed as a kid.
Absolutely.
It sticks with us. And then that, yeah. Anyway, so it sends us into
Yeah.
conflict. I wish we did more awareness,
Yes.
self-awareness.
Uh-huh.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's kind of branch off of this. Let's talk. There's so many other things we've talked about over the months on the roadmap. You know, learning to embrace MI, um, being coaches and mentors, and not just facilitators of knowledge. Well, how do we start incorporating that into professional learning moving forward? Tiffany, for you as a building administrator, and Kathleen and Mishkat as professional educators that are a voice out there that people listen to, how do we start to shift that so that the training isn't just math methods or classroom management, but not that there's anything wrong with that, but to get beyond that so that teachers are better prepared when they come in that first year to say, look at all these new tools. Look at what kids need and expect now. It's not what I was taught. And Lord help me, in 1985, when I graduated, it was a great program. Ohio State was #2 in the country in teacher prep that year. I was not ready for that classroom. I learned as fast as I could teaching middle school. So it's an old problem. It's not has nothing to do with current necessarily status of teacher prep. But all that having been said, and I need to be quiet, well, what are the things that we need to incorporate into professional learning for in-service teachers who are coming back now and working with their principals in their districts? And they obviously we need to provide training in different ways and new experiences. Well, where do we start? What does that look like?
Challenges we are facing is compliance-driven training versus adaptive, future-ready skills training. So if we treat training teachers, whether in service or pre-service, as a check mark that we need to tick to say we did it, then that's the major issue right there. But if
Gotcha.
we take a step back and start looking at the same training, but how can we make it adaptive? The thing is, the challenges in the classrooms, they change almost daily. However, the training that we use, the curriculum we create, the mindset that we try to get people to believe in, the teachers, it didn't change much.
Right.
So that's the other component. Then teachers need to perform based on standards, which is, understandable, acceptable, and all of that. Nevertheless, the teacher faces a challenge daily. So how do I conduct this classroom in such a way that meets the standards, at the same time addresses the issues that I am facing this moment with my students?
Yeah.
So that question remains challenging to the teachers.
Yeah.
And if we want to invest in their development, in the teachers' professional growth, we need to have an adaptive training, a training that, they can, rely on for future challenges. It doesn't need to, be something, to use like virtual reality or simulations or whatever the case is. It just need to be adaptive to the challenges that are coming at the teachers. I have had conversations with teachers who are concerned about taking a disciplinary action. The class is in a chaos, but the teacher feels they cannot take a disciplinary action because the student will get back at them. Either in evaluations, either by filing a complaint. Teachers tend to apply for a transfer to move into another district or
Right.
go to a private school. just because, they experience a lot of challenges in the classroom, behavioral challenges.
Mhm.
If we don't have an honest conversation about these issues and how to address them,
Yeah.
then that's an issue.
It is.
I'd like to share also a story from my nonprofit days, so to
Yes.
speak. I worked in a nonprofit that worked with students and teachers
Mhm.
in both ways. They provided professional development to teachers as independent providers
Mhm.
and provided activities and opportunities for the students to participate in.
Right.
In one event, the students were visiting an industry, a STEM
Mhm.
industry, to learn more about it.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And they were completely disengaged,
Mhm.
not interested at all.
Yeah.
The facilitator turned and said one thing: "What are your plans after graduation?
Mhm.
What do you want to do?"
Mhm.
The entire dynamic changed
Mm.
because now students have a stake at what was going on based on this question.
Yeah.
And, having the kind of the mindset, the experience to engage with the learners in such a way that would shift their attention from disregarding what's going on to being part of it is a key tool, a key instrument that the teachers need to have in order for them to conduct a successful classroom. Relying on disciplinary tools all the time makes the class feels more like a prison versus
Right.
a
Right.
learning experience. And
Yeah.
that part is missing from training and from curriculum.
Mhm. Thank you. Kathleen? Oh, I'm sorry. Tiffany?
Sorry, I was just gonna add, I really think like pre-service too, creating a mindset of collaboration. So,
Mm.
I mean, really getting back to true
Mhm.
professional learning communities. I feel very blessed because we create that environment, which our board, they make sure that all of our grade level people have planning together every day. They have 100 minutes of planning. Today was Monday. Today's what we call our BAT team meeting, behavior achievement team. So we
Mhm.
go through the MTSS process, and like today we said, okay, tier 1, who is not responding to your expectations? And as a
Mhm.
team we do that. And then we problem solve together. Have you called the parent? Here, have you tried this? They don't do well by Johnny and he's sitting by Johnny. Have you moved a seat? And so I think one of the big things that I know in South Carolina, they do an exit survey when people are leaving the
Mhm.
profession. And one of the number one reasons that people leave is that they don't have a best friend in their building. So they're more likely to stay if they quote unquote have a best friend. And so I just look at some of my teams, and like my 8th grade team works so well together. And a lot of them were together for a long time. And we just had some people, retire, and they brought these new folks into the fold. And it's kind of like that old school feeling of just love and care. So, like, one of the people is a web leader coordinator with me, and so these folders needed to be done. Well, her whole team knew they had to be done. So they came in early. This is before school started, and they said, "Hey,
Mhm.
we'll help you get these folders done." Like,
Mhm.
it's those little things of like collaboration and teamwork, and that
Mhm.
add to an environment that make people want to be where they are. They make sure that they're truly collaborating to become better teachers, right? Like if we gave a common formative assessment and kids just bombed it for me, but they did well for you, like we need to have a relationship where I can feel comfortable saying, I don't know what happened in this unit. Like, what did you do different that I didn't do? And so I think that mindset, that openness to like truly, and those experiences to really be collaborative, and not just your content, but in behavior and looking at, attendance for kids, all those good things. I think that's something that's really important in pre-service as well, that mindset and kind of inquiry themselves, as they're coming into the profession. And too frequently we're like talking down on our profession, which doesn't really help prepare them because they're ready for like the worst. And 99% of the time, even with behaviors, I find kids will get in line. If you love and care about them, you provide structures and support, they'll do what we ask of them, and you get to be about the business of teaching and learning. And so I just think when that mindset of collaboration is there,
Yeah.
it's people who are just closed off that I've found not to be successful in our field.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's very true. Kathleen?
Yeah, so, I'm going to and then I'm just going to reflect on what you just said. It's really about building relationships.
Yeah.
And I remember being a first year teacher, and I was a computer teacher, and who knew what that person did, right? Back in the late 80s, right?
Yeah.
So, but the thing is that I built lots of relationships in that particular school. I mean, and that made all the difference in the world. Um, and those are the best years, when it's sort of that camaraderie that gets built among teachers and
Yeah.
caring about each other. And when you're actually always exhibiting that to kids all the time. see?
Right.
And because we want kids to build relationships, right?
Yes.
And you want to have relationships with children. And so the thing is, you have to create that environment of caring and belonging, that we all belong. And there's no judgment of each other. You see, the old famous saying, judge not lest you be judged, right?
Right.
That sort of rings in my ear,
Yeah.
in my sort of my religious upbringing way back many decades ago.
Hey,
Boy, that's really true.
it
And,
is.
when you get into that environment, and I always think how important it is for teachers to know that they're all different learners too. You see,
Right.
one of the things I
Right.
often do with teachers is for them to discover who they are as learners,
Yes.
so they can really appreciate the kids in their classroom and how they learn so differently. And how do you create that? How do you universally design your instruction to
Yeah.
engage all learners in your classroom? That's
Yeah.
the secret sauce, okay?
Right.
But
Amen.
who
Amen.
they are, right? So,
So then let me ask, we just have a few minutes left. I say it every time we get together, the time just goes too fast. But with everything we said about higher ed and teachers, what is the shift we need from administrators to be able to support all of this? Because they do kind of set the tone and expectations and performance reviews and all those good things. What has to change at the building level, but also at the district level, so that it is a safe place and it is caring and there are relationships being built, and that it gives people permission to shift their identity as a teacher. Oh, you're on mute, Mishket.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I would say provide every opportunity for each teacher to succeed.
Mhm.
Equip them with tools, strategies, mentorship to create inclusive learning environments.
Mhm.
So rather than rushing to, let's say, mark the teacher as, not succeeding or the standard as unmet or something like that, provide them with all the opportunities that they need to succeed. The teacher is the foundation of any school. So if we equip them with tools, strategies, opportunities, and allow them to choose what works for them, I think we will see different and more effective classrooms.
Amen. Tiffany, as a building leader, what are your thoughts? Is this a loaded question, or are you like, yes, let me talk?
Yeah, I've been under so many types of leadership, top down, site-based management. For me, I think a mix of site-based and some top, there has to be oversight, right, in schools.
Right.
But I think, early in my career, somebody said to me, people change things, not programs. And I mean, everybody is selling something today in the educational world. I feel like
So true.
I'm guilty as well. I mean, I have my own educational LLC. You know,
Yep.
we are all in that field, but at the end of the day, I think the people who are on the ground, like I meet with my leadership team every Friday. I get coverage for their advisory and I ask their input. I'm like, okay, these are the things we have. That meeting is managerial. Our Monday meeting this morning, our is our guiding coalition, which is instructional. So those two stay totally separate because it can be really easy to get bogged down in managerial and forget your instructional piece. But I do that because there are things that my teachers see that I don't see, and I genuinely need their input because my job is to make the best environment possible, and I can't do that alone just because my perspective is different than teachers on some things, right? So it could be as simple as like, you know, we have an early release bell schedule for Wednesday, and it's like, oh, did you forget, you know, we've got this thing going on in electives. Oh gosh, that bell schedule's not going to work. If somebody wouldn't have spoken up, we would get to
Right.
Wednesday. And so I feel like that needs to be kind of a practice across the board from school buildings, from grade level content teams to the school building leadership up to the top leadership, is that everybody, the people that are the players should have a voice at the table. And you know, and I have had things as a principal where I've been told this is what you will do next
Right.
week with 45 students. And
Right.
it's like the chaos that that creates. And you know, my job is to kind of try to shield my teachers.
Yes.
And so I do feel like that is something we have to be cognizant and like trust. I think that book, the Covey book, Speed of Trust, we just did
Yes.
that this summer with my leadership team. Is like,
Yes.
if you don't have trust, your teams are not going to work effectively. And so, building that trust, part of that is like listening to each other. And so, genuine soliciting genuine input from people and listening to them. So, I do think that that is a piece. I think sometimes people just what may have worked in one area, they think will work in another, and it's like, do this here. But you know, that's really not the way that the educational world works. And so,
No.
yeah, probably it'd be interesting to see a shake up in like how leadership is kind of constructed within education.
Mhm.
But I don't have
Yeah.
the answer fully for that though,
No.
Walter.
No. Well, understood. No, there are no magic answers, but having your input really adds value. So thank you. Kathleen, you get the last word. What are your thoughts kind of capping this off?
I don't know. So I always think of this is that when teachers are approaching, always to remember this one phrase,
Yeah.
learning is personal,
Yes.
no matter who you are. Keep that really at the top of your mind always, and get to know who your learners are and the teachers who are that are associated with you. So I was an administrator K-12. In fact, I met Walter. We were both tech directors in Massachusetts,
Yeah.
and
A long
that,
time
but
ago.
that, by the way, is a just enormous responsibility in a school
Yeah.
district. So you may not understand what we do, but but the thing is that we virtually impact every single person in the school. It's one of those jobs that is never ending. It seems like you go home and it's always with you. So,
Right.
but
Yeah.
anyway, learning is personal. Just remember that always.